The Mabinogion. Mabinogion means tales, and it is the name given to the collection of popular tales belonging to the people of Wales. The Welsh is a very old language, one of the oldest in Europe, with poems dating from the 6th century. It is so much a spoken language, and so little a printed language, that it was only in recent years that the tales were translated into English by Lady Charlotte Guest. The following stories have been retold from her text. Part 1. Kynon's Adventure at the Fountain, by Lady Charlotte Guest. King Arthur was at Caerleon upon Usk, and one day he sat in his chamber, and with him were Owain, the son of Urien, and Kynon the son of Clydno, and Kay the son of Cyner, and Guinevere and her handmaidens at needlework by the window. In the centre of the chamber King Arthur sat, upon a seat of green rushes, over which was spread a covering of flame-coloured satin, and a cushion of red satin was under his elbow. Then Arthur spoke. "If I thought you would not disparage me," said he, "I would sleep while I wait for my repast, and you can entertain one another with relating tales, and can obtain a flagon of mead and some meat from Kay." And the king went to sleep. And Kynon, the son of Clydno, asked Kay for that which Arthur had promised them. "I too will have the good tale which he promised me," said Kay. "Nay," answered Kynon, "fairer will it be for thee to fulfil Arthur's behest in the first place, and then we will tell thee the best tale that we know." So Kay went to the kitchen and to the mead cellar, and returned, bearing a flagon of mead, and a golden goblet, and a handful of skewers, upon which were boiled slices of meat. They ate the collops, and began to drink the mead. "Now," said Kay, "it is time for you to give me my story." "Kynon," said Owain, "do thou pay to Kay the tale that is his due." "I will do so," answered Kynon. "I was the only son of my mother and father, and I was exceedingly aspiring, and my daring was very great. I thought there was no enterprise in the world too mighty for me, and after I had achieved all the adventures that were in my own country, I equipped myself, and set forth to journey through deserts and distant regions. And at length it chanced that I came to the fairest valley in the world, wherein were trees all of equal growth, and a river ran through the valley, and a path was by the side of the river. I followed the path until midday, and continued my journey along the remainder of the valley until the evening, and at the extremity of the plain I came to a large and lustrous castle, at the foot of which was a torrent. I approached the castle, and there I beheld 2 youths with yellow curling hair, each with a frontlet of gold upon his head, and clad in a garment of yellow satin, and they had gold clasps upon their insteps. In the hand of each of them was an ivory bow, strung with the sinews of the stag, and their arrows and their shafts were of the bone of the whale, and were winged with peacock's feathers. The shafts also had golden heads. They had daggers with blades of gold, with hilts of the bone of the whale, and they were shooting at a mark. A little away from them I saw a man in the prime of life, with his beard newly shorn, clad in a robe and mantle of yellow satin, and round the top of his mantle was a band of gold lace. On his feet were shoes of variegated leather, fastened by 2 bosses of gold. When I saw them, I went towards him and saluted him, and such was his courtesy that he no sooner received my greeting than he returned it. And he went with me towards the castle. Now there were no dwellers in the castle, except those who were in one hall. There I saw 24 damsels embroidering satin at a window. And this I tell thee, Kay, that the least fair of them was fairer than the fairest maid thou didst ever behold in the island of Britain, and the least lovely of them was more lovely than Guinevere, the wife of Arthur, when she appeared loveliest at the feast of Easter. They rose up at my coming, and 6 of them took my horse, and divested me of my armor, and 6 others took my arms, and washed them in a vessel till they were perfectly bright. And the third 6 spread cloths upon the tables, and prepared meat. And the fourth 6 took off my soiled garments, and placed others upon me, namely, an undervest and a doublet of fine linen, and a robe and a surcoat. and a mantle of yellow satin, with a broad gold band upon the mantle. And they placed cushions both beneath and around me, with coverings of red linen, and I sat down. Now the 6 maidens who had taken my horse unharnessed him as well as if they had been the best squires in the island of Britain. Then behold, they brought bowls of silver, wherein was water to wash, and towels of linen, some green and some white, and I washed. And in a little while the man sat down at the table. I sat next to him, and below me sat all the maidens, except those who waited on us. The table was of silver, and the cloths upon the table were of linen. No vessel was served upon the table that was not either of gold or of silver, or of buffalo horn, and our meat was brought to us. And verily, Kay, I saw there every sort of meat and every sort of liquor that I ever saw elsewhere, but the meat and the liquor were better served there than I ever saw them in any other place. Until the repast was half over, neither the man nor any one of the damsels spoke a single word to me, but when the man perceived that it would be more agreeable for me to converse than to eat any more, he began to inquire of me who I was. I told the man who I was, and what was the cause of my journey, and said that I was seeking whether any one was superior to me, or whether I could gain mastery over all. The man looked upon me, and smiled, and said, If I did not fear to do thee a mischief, I would show thee that which thou seekest. Then I desired him to speak freely, and he said, Sleep here tonight, and in the morning arise early. Take the road upwards through the valley, until thou reachest the wood. A little way within the wood thou wilt come to a large sheltered glade, with a mound in the centre. And thou wilt see a black man of great stature on the top of the mound. He has but 1 foot, and 1 eye in the middle of his forehead. He is the wood-ward of that wood. Thou wilt see 1,000 wild animals grazing around him. Inquire of him the way out of the glade, and he will reply to thee briefly, and will point out the road by which thou shalt find that which thou art in quest of. Long seemed that night to me. The next morning I arose and equipped myself, and mounted my horse, and proceeded straight through the valley to the wood, and at length I arrived at the glade. The black man was there, sitting upon the top of the mound, and I was 3 times more astonished at the number of wild animals that I beheld than the man had said I should be. I inquired of him the way, and he asked me roughly whither I would go. When I had told him who I was and what I sought, "Take," said he, "that path that leads towards the head of the glade, and there thou wilt find an open space like to a large valley, and in the midst of it a tall tree. Under this tree is a fountain, and by the side of the fountain a marble slab, and on the marble slab a silver bowl, attached by a chain of silver, that it may not be carried away. Take the bowl, and throw a bowlful of water on the slab. If thou dost not find trouble in that adventure, thou needest not seek it during the rest of thy life." So I journeyed on until I reached the summit of the steep, and there I found everything as the black man had described it to me. I went up to the tree, and beneath it I saw the fountain, and by the side the marble slab, and the silver bowl fastened by the chain. Then I took the bowl, and cast a bowlful of water upon the slab. Immediately I heard a mighty peal of thunder, so that heaven and earth seemed to tremble with its fury. And after the thunder came a shower, and of a truth I tell thee, Kay, that it was such a shower as neither man nor beast could endure and live. I turned my horse's flank towards the shower, and placed the point of my shield over his head and neck, while I held the upper part of it over my own neck, and thus I withstood the shower. Presently the sky became clear. With that, behold, the birds lighted upon the tree and sang. Truly, Kay, I never heard any melody equal to that, either before or since. And when I was most charmed with listening to the birds, a chiding voice was heard of one approaching me and saying, "O knight, what has brought thee hither? What evil have I done to thee, that thou shouldst act towards me and my possessions as thou hast this day? Dost thou not know that the shower to-day has left in my dominions neither man nor beast alive that was exposed to it. And thereupon, behold, a knight on a black horse appeared, clothed in jet-black velvet, and with a tabard of black linen about him. We charged each other, and as the onset was furious, it was not long before I was overthrown. Then the knight passed the shaft of his lance through the bridle rein of my horse, and rode off with the 2 horses, leaving me where I was. He did not even bestow so much notice upon me as to imprison me, nor did he despoil me of my arms. So I returned along the road by which I had come. And when I reached the glade where the black man was, I confess to thee, Kay, it is a marvel that I did not melt down into a liquid pool, through the shame that I felt at the black man's derision. That night I came to the same castle where I had spent the night preceding, and I was more agreeably entertained that night than I had been the night before. I conversed freely with the inmates of the castle, and none of them alluded to my expedition to the fountain, neither did I mention it to any, and I remained there that night. When I arose on the morrow, I found already saddled a dark bay palfrey, with nostrils as red as scarlet. After putting on my armor, and leaving there my blessing, I returned to my own court. That horse I still possess, and he is in the stable yonder, and I declare that I would not part with him for the best palfrey in the island of Britain. Now of a truth, Kay, no man ever before confessed to an adventure so much to his own discredit, and verily it seems strange to me that neither before nor since have I heard of any person who knew of this adventure, and that the subject of it should exist within King Arthur's dominions, without any other person lighting upon it. End of section 16. The Mabinogion Part 2. Owain's Adventure at the Fountain. Now, quoth Owain, would it not be well to go and endeavour to discover that place? By the hand of my friend, said Kay, often thou dost utter that with thy tongue which thou wouldst not make good with thy deeds. In very truth, said Guinevere, it were better thou wert hanged, Kay, than to use such uncourteous speech towards a man like Owain. By the hand of my friend, good lady, said Kay, thy praise of Owain is not greater than mine. With that Arthur awoke, and asked if he had not been sleeping a little. Yes, lord, answered Owain, thou hast slept a while. Is it time for us to go to meat? It is, lord, said Owain. Then the horn for washing was sounded, and the king and all his household sat down to eat. When the meal was ended, Owain withdrew to his lodging, and made ready his horse and his arms. On the morrow, with the dawn of day, he put on his armor, and mounted his charger, and travelled through distant lands, and over desert mountains. At length he arrived at the valley, which Kynon had described to him, and he was certain that it was the same that he sought. Journeying along the valley, by the side of the river, he followed its course till he came to the plain, and within sight of the castle. When he approached the castle, he saw the youths shooting with their bows, in the place where Kynon had seen them, and the yellow man, to whom the castle belonged, standing hard by. And no sooner had Owain saluted the yellow man than he was saluted by him in return. He went forward towards the castle, and there he saw the chamber, and when he had entered the chamber, he beheld the maidens working at satin embroidery, and chains of gold. Their beauty and their comeliness seemed to Owain far greater than Kynon had represented to him. They arose to wait upon Owain, as they had done to Kynon, and the meal which they set before him gave even more satisfaction to Owain than it had done to Kynon. About the middle of the repast, the yellow man asked Owain the subject of his journey. Owain made it known to him, and said, I am in quest of the knight who guards the fountain. Upon this the yellow man smiled, and said that he was as loath to point out that adventure to him as he had been to Kynon. However, he described the whole to Owain, and they retired to rest. The next morning Owain found his horse made ready for him by the damsels, and he set forward and came to the glade where the black man was. The stature of the black man seemed more wonderful to Owain than it had done to Kynon. And Owain asked of him his road, and he showed it to him. And Owain followed the road till he came to the green tree, and he beheld the fountain, and the slab beside the fountain, with the bowl upon it. Owain took the bowl and threw a bowlful of water upon the slab, and lo, the thunder was heard, and after the thunder came the shower, more violent than Kynon had described, and after the shower the sky became bright. Immediately the birds came and settled upon the tree and sang. And when their song was most pleasing to Owain, he beheld a knight coming towards him through the valley, and he prepared to receive him, and encountered him violently. Having broken both their lances, they drew their swords and fought blade to blade. Then Owain struck the knight a blow through his helmet, headpiece and visor, and through the skin and the flesh and the bone, and it wounded the very brain. Then the black knight felt that he had received a mortal wound, upon which he turned his horse's head and fled. Owain pursued him, and followed close upon him, although he was not near enough to strike him with his sword. Then Owain descried a vast and resplendent castle, and they came to the castle gate. The black knight was allowed to enter, but the portcullis was let fall upon Owain, and it struck his horse behind the saddle, and cut him in two, and carried away the rowels of the spurs that were upon Owain's heels. And the portcullis descended to the floor, and the rowels of the spurs and part of the horse were without, and Owain and the other part of the horse remained within the two gates, and the inner gate was closed, so that Owain could not go thence. And Owain was in a perplexing situation. While he was in this state, he could see through an aperture in the gate a street facing him, with a row of houses on each side. He beheld a maiden with yellow curling hair, and a frontlet of gold upon her head, and she was clad in a dress of yellow satin, and on her feet were shoes of variegated leather. And she approached the gate, and desired that it should be opened. "Heaven knows, lady," said Owain, "it is no more possible for me to open thee from hence, than it is for thee to set me free." And he told her his name, and who he was. "Truly," said the damsel, "it is very sad that thou canst not be released, and every woman ought to succour thee, for I know there is no one more faithful in the service of ladies than thou. Therefore," quoth she, "whatever is in my power to do for thy release, I will do it. Take this ring and put it on thy finger, with the stone inside thy hand, and close thy hand upon the stone. As long as thou concealest it, it will conceal thee. When they come forth to fetch thee, they will be much grieved that they cannot find thee. I will await thee on the horse block yonder, and thou wilt be able to see me, though I cannot see thee. Therefore come and place thy hand upon my shoulder, that I may know that thou art near me, and by the way that I go hence, do thou accompany me." Then the maiden went away from Owain, and he did all that she had told him. The people of the castle came to seek Owain to put him to death, and when they found nothing but the half of his horse, they were sorely grieved. And Owain vanished from among them, and went to the maiden, and placed his hand upon her shoulder, whereupon she set off, and Owain followed her, until they came to the door of a large and beautiful chamber, and the maiden opened it, and they went in. Owain looked around the chamber, and behold, there was not a single nail in it that was not painted with gorgeous colors, and there was not a single panel that had not sundry images of gold portrayed upon it. The maiden kindled a fire, and took water in a silver bowl, and gave Owain water to wash. Then she placed before him a silver table, inlaid with gold, upon which was a cloth of yellow linen, and she brought him food. Of a truth, Owain never saw any kind of meat that was not there in abundance, but it was better cooked there than he had ever found it in any other place. There was not one vessel from which he was served that was not of gold or of silver. Owain ate and drank until late in the afternoon, when lo, they heard a mighty clamour in the castle, and he asked the maiden what it was. "They are administering extreme unction," said she, "to the nobleman who owns the castle." And she prepared a couch for Owain, which was meet for Arthur himself, and Owain went to sleep. A little after daybreak he heard an exceeding loud clamour and wailing, and he asked the maiden what was the cause of it. "They are bearing to the church the body of the nobleman who owned the castle." And Owain rose up, and clothed himself, and opened a window of the chamber, and looked towards the castle. He could see neither the bounds nor the extent of the host that filled the streets, and they were fully armed, and a vast number of women were with them, both on horseback and on foot, and all the ecclesiastics in the city singing. In the midst of the throng he beheld the bier, over which was a veil of white linen, and wax tapers were burning beside and around it, and none that supported the bier was lower in rank than a powerful baron. Never did Owain see an assemblage so gorgeous with silk and satin. And following the train, he beheld a lady with yellow hair falling over her shoulders, and stained with blood, and about her a dress of yellow satin, which was torn. Upon her feet were shoes of variegated leather. It was a marvel that the ends of her fingers were not bruised, from the violence with which she smote her hands together. Truly she would have been the fairest lady Owain ever saw, had she been in her usual guise. And her cry was louder than the shout of the men, or the clamour of the trumpets. No sooner had he beheld the lady, than he became inflamed with her love, so that it took entire possession of him. Then he inquired of the maiden who the lady was. "Heaven knows," replied the maiden. "She is the fairest, the purest, the most liberal, and the most noble of women. She is my mistress, and she is called the Countess of the Fountain, the wife of him whom thou didst slay yesterday." "Verily," said Owain, "she is the woman that I love best." "Verily," said the maiden, "she shall also love thee not a little." The maiden prepared a repast for Owain, and truly he thought he had never before so good a meal, nor was he ever so well served. Then she left him, and went towards the castle. When she came there, she found nothing but mourning and sorrow, and the Countess in her chamber could not bear the sight of any one through grief. Lludd, for that was the name of the maiden, saluted her, but the Countess of the Fountain answered her not. And the maiden bent down towards her, and said, "What aileth thee, that thou answerest no one to-day?" "Lludd," said the Countess, "what change hath befallen thee, that thou hast not come to visit me in my grief? It was wrong in thee, and I so sorely afflicted." "Truly," said Lludd, "I thought thy good sense was greater than I find it to be. Is it well for thee to mourn after that good man, or for anything else that thou canst not have?" "I declare to heaven," said the Countess, "that in the whole world there is not a man equal to him." "Not so," said Lludd, "for an ugly man would be as good as or better than he." "I declare to heaven," said the Countess, "that were it not repugnant to me to put to death one whom I have brought up, I would have thee executed for making such a comparison to me. As it is, I will banish thee." "I am glad," said Lludd, "that thou hast no other cause to do so than that I would have been of service to thee, where thou didst not know what was to thine advantage. Henceforth evil betide whichever of us shall make the first advance towards reconciliation to the other, whether I should seek an invitation from thee, or thou of thine own accord should send to invite." With that Lludd went forth, and the Countess arose and followed her to the door of the chamber, and began coughing loudly. When Lludd looked back, the Countess beckoned to her, and she returned to the Countess. "In truth," said the Countess, "evil is thy disposition, but if thou knowest what is to my advantage, declare it to me." "I will do so," said she. "Thou knowest that, except by warfare and arms, it is impossible for thee to preserve thy possessions. Delay not, therefore, to seek someone who can defend them." "How can I do that?" said the Countess. "I will tell thee," said Lludd. "Unless thou canst defend the fountain, thou canst not maintain thy dominions. And no one can defend the fountain, except it be a knight of Arthur's household. I will go to Arthur's court, and ill betide me if I return not thence with a warrior who can guard the fountain as well as, or even better than he who defended it formerly." "That will be hard to perform," said the Countess. "Go, however, and make proof of that which thou hast promised." Lludd set out under the pretence of going to Arthur's court, But she went back to the mansion where she had left Owain, and she tarried there as long as it might have taken her to travel to the court of King Arthur and back. At the end of that time she apparelled herself, and went to visit the Countess. The Countess was much rejoiced when she saw her, and inquired what news she brought from the court. "I bring thee the best of news," said Lludd, "for I have compassed the object of my mission. When wilt thou that I should present to thee the chieftain who has come with me hither?" "Bring him here to visit me tomorrow," said the Countess, "and I will cause the town to be assembled by that time." And Lludd returned home. The next day at noon, Owain arrayed himself in a coat and a surcoat, and a mantle of yellow satin, upon which was a broad band of gold lace, and on his feet were high shoes of variegated leather, which were fastened by golden clasps in the form of lions. And they proceeded to the chamber of the Countess. Right glad was the Countess of their coming. She gazed steadfastly upon Owain, and said, "Lludd, this knight has not the look of a traveller." "What harm is there in that, lady?" said Lludd. "I am certain," said the Countess, "that no other man than this chased the soul from the body of my lord." "So much the better for thee, lady," said Lludd, "for had he not been stronger than thy lord, he could not have deprived him of life. There is no remedy for that which is past, be it as it may." "Go back to thine abode," said the Countess, "and I will take counsel." The next day the Countess caused all her subjects to assemble, and showed them that her earldom was left defenceless, and that it could not be protected but with horse and arms, and military skill. "Therefore," said she, "this is what I offer for your choice. Either let one of you take me, or give your consent for me to take a husband from elsewhere, to defend my dominions." So they came to the determination that it was better that she should have permission to marry someone from elsewhere, and thereupon she sent for the bishops and the archbishops to celebrate her nuptials with Owain, and the men of the earldom did Owain homage. Owain defended the fountain with lance and sword, and this is the manner in which he defended it. Whensoever a knight came there, he overthrew him, and sold him for his full worth. What he thus gained he divided among his barons and his knights, and no man in the whole world could be more beloved than he was by his subjects. And it was thus for the space of 3 years. End of section 17. The Mabinogion, Part 3. Gawain's adventure in search of Owain. It befell that, as Gawain went forth one day with King Arthur, he perceived him to be very sad and sorrowful. And Gawain was much grieved to see Arthur in this state, and he questioned him, saying, "O my lord, what has befallen thee?" "In sooth, Gawain," said Arthur, "I am grieved concerning Owain, whom I have lost these 3 years, and I shall certainly die if the 4th year pass without my seeing him. Now I am sure that it is through the tale which Kynon, the son of Llevelys, related, that I have lost Owain." "There is no need for thee," said Gawain, "to summon to arms thy whole dominions on this account, for thou thyself, and the men of thy household, will be able to avenge Owain if he be slain, or to set him free if he be in prison, and if alive, to bring him back with thee." And it was settled according to what Gawain had said. Then Arthur and the men of his household prepared to go and seek Owain, and Kynon, the son of Llevelys, acted as their guide. And Arthur came to the castle where Kynon had been before, and when he came there, the youths were shooting in the same place, and the yellow man was standing hard by. When the yellow man saw Arthur, he greeted him, and invited him to the castle. Arthur accepted his invitation, and they entered the castle together. Great as was the number of his retinue, their presence was scarcely observed in the castle, so vast was its extent, and the maidens rose up to wait on them. The service of the maidens appeared to them all to excel any attendants they had ever met with, and even the pages, who had charge of the horses, were no worse served that night than Arthur himself would have been in his own palace. The next morning Arthur set out thence, with Kynon for his guide, and came to the place where the black man was. And the stature of the black man was more surprising to Arthur than it had been represented to him. They came to the top of the wooded steep, and traversed the valley till they reached the green tree, where they saw the fountain and the bowl and the slab. And upon that Kay came to Arthur and spoke to him. "My lord," said he, "I know the meaning of all this, and my request is that thou wilt permit me to throw the water on the slab, and to receive the first adventure that may befall." And Arthur gave him leave. Then Kay threw a bowl full of water upon the slab, and immediately there came the thunder, and after the thunder the shower. And such a thunderstorm they had never known before. After the shower had ceased, the sky became clear, and on looking at the tree, they beheld it completely leafless. Then the birds descended upon the tree, and the song of the birds was far sweeter than any strain they had ever heard before. Then they beheld a knight, on a coal-black horse, clothed in black satin, coming rapidly towards them. Kay met him and encountered him, and it was not long before Kay was overthrown. The knight withdrew, and Arthur and his host encamped for the night. When they arose in the morning, they perceived the signal of combat upon the lance of the knight. Then one by one all the household of Arthur went forth to combat the knight, until there was not one that was not overthrown by him, except Arthur and Gawain. And Arthur armed himself to encounter the knight. "O my lord," said Gawain, "permit me to fight with him first." And Arthur permitted him. He went forth to meet the knight, having over himself and his horse a satin robe of honour, which had been sent him by the daughter of the Earl of Rangir, and in this dress he was not known by any of the host. And they charged each other, and fought all that day until the evening. And neither of them was able to unhorse the other. And so it was the next day. They broke their lances in the shock, but neither of them could obtain the mastery. The third day they fought with exceeding strong lances. They were incensed with rage, and fought furiously, even until noon. They gave each other such a shock that the girths of their horses were broken, so that they fell over their horses' cruppers to the ground. And they rose up speedily and drew their swords, and resumed the combat. All they that witnessed their encounter felt assured that they had never before seen two men so valiant or so powerful. Had it been midnight, it would have been light, from the fire that flashed from their weapons. And the knight gave Gawain a blow that turned his helmet from off his face, so that the knight saw that it was Gawain. Then Owain said, "My lord Gawain, I did not know thee for my cousin, owing to the robe of honour that enveloped thee. Take my sword and my arms." Said Gawain, "Thou, Owain, art the victor, take thou my sword." And with that Arthur saw that they were conversing, and advanced towards them. "My lord Arthur," said Gawain, "here is Owain, who has vanquished me, and will not take my arms." "My lord," said Owain, "it is he that has vanquished me, and he will not take my sword." "Give me your sword," said Arthur, "and then neither of you has vanquished the other." Then Owain put his arms round Arthur's neck, and they embraced. All the host hurried forward to see Owain, and to embrace him, and there was nigh being a loss of life, so great was the press. The next day Arthur prepared to depart. "My lord," said Owain, "it is not well of thee, for I have been absent from thee these 3 years, and during all that time, up to this very day, I have been preparing a banquet for thee, knowing that thou wouldst come to seek me. Tarry with me, therefore, until thou and thy attendants have recovered the fatigues of the journey, and have been anointed." And they all proceeded to the castle of the Countess of the Fountain, and the banquet which had been 3 years preparing was consumed in 3 months. Never had they a more delicious or agreeable banquet. And Arthur prepared to depart. Then he sent an embassy to the Countess, to beseech her to permit Owain to go with him for the space of 3 months, that he might show him to the nobles and the fair dames of the island of Britain. And the Countess gave her consent, although it was very painful to her. So Owain came with Arthur to the island of Britain. And when he was once more amongst his kindred and friends, he remained 3 years instead of 3 months with them. End of section 18. The Mabinogion, Part 4. The Adventure of the Lion. As Owain sat one day at meat in the city of Caerleon upon Usk, a damsel entered the hall upon a bay horse, with a curling mane, and covered with foam, and the bridle and as much as was seen of the saddle were of gold. The damsel was arrayed in a dress of yellow satin, and she came up to Owain, and took the ring from off his hand. "Thus," said she, "shall be treated the deceiver, the traitor, the faithless, the disgraced, and the beardless." And she turned her horse's head and departed. Then his adventure came to Owain's remembrance, and he was sorrowful. Having finished eating, he went to his own abode, and made preparations that night. The next day he arose, but did not go to the court, nor did he return to the Countess of the Fountain, but wandered to the distant parts of the earth, and to uncultivated mountains. And he remained here until all his apparel was worn out, and his body was wasted away, and his hair was grown long. And he went about with the wild beasts, and fed with them, until they became familiar with him. But at length he became so weak that he could no longer bear them company. Then he descended from the mountains to the valley, and came to a park that was the fairest in the world, and belonged to a charitable lady. One day the lady and her attendants went forth to walk by a lake that was in the middle of the park. They saw the form of a man, lying as if dead, and were terrified. Nevertheless they went near him, and touched him, and saw that there was life in him. And the lady returned to the castle, and took a flask full of precious ointment, and gave it to one of her maidens. "Go with this," said she, "and take with thee yonder horse and clothing, and place them near the man we saw just now, and anoint him with this balsam near his heart. And if there is life in him, he will revive, through the efficiency of this balsam. Then watch what he will do." The maiden departed from her, and went and poured of the balsam upon Owain, and left the horse and garments hard by, and went a little way off and hid herself to watch him. In a short time she saw him begin to move. He rose up, looked at his person, and became ashamed of the unseemliness of his appearance. Then he perceived the horse and the garments that were near him. He clothed himself, and with difficulty mounted the horse. Then the damsel discovered herself to him, and saluted him. And he and the maiden proceeded to the castle, and the maiden conducted him to a pleasant chamber, and kindled a fire, and left him. He stayed at the castle 3 months, till he was restored to his former guise, and became even more comely than he had ever been before. And Owain rendered signal service to the lady, in a controversy with a powerful neighbor, so that he made ample requital to her for her hospitality, and he took his departure. As he journeyed, he heard a loud yelling in the wood. It was repeated a second and a third time. And Owain went towards the spot, and beheld a huge craggy mound in the middle of the wood, on the side of which was a grey rock. There was a cleft in the rock, and a serpent was within the cleft. Near the rock stood a black lion, and every time the lion sought to go thence, the serpent darted towards him to attack him. And Owain unsheathed his sword, and drew near to the rock, and as the serpent sprung out, he struck him with his sword, and cut him in two. And he dried his sword, and went on his way as before. Behold, the lion followed him, and played about him, as though it had been a greyhound that he had reared. They proceeded thus throughout the day until the evening. When it was time for Owain to take his rest, he dismounted, and turned his horse loose in a flat and wooded meadow. He struck fire, and when the fire was kindled, the lion brought him fuel enough to last for 3 nights, and the lion disappeared. Presently the lion returned, bearing a fine large roebuck, and threw it down before Owain, who went towards the fire with it. Owain took the roebuck, skinned it, and placed slices of its flesh upon skewers round the fire. The rest of the buck he gave to the lion to devour. While he was so employed, he heard a deep groan near him, and a second, and a third. The place whence the groans proceeded was a cave in the rock, and Owain went near, and called out to know who it was that groaned so piteously. And a voice answered, "I am Lludd, the handmaiden of the Countess of the Fountain." "And what dost thou here?" said he. "I am in prison," said she, "on account of the knight who came from Arthur's court, and married the Countess. And he stayed a short time with her, but he afterwards departed for the court of Arthur, and has not returned since. And 2 of the Countess's pages traduced him, and called him a deceiver. And because I said I would vouch for it, he would come before long, and maintain his cause against both of them, they imprisoned me in this cave, and said that I should be put to death, unless he came to deliver me by a certain day, and that it is no further off than tomorrow. And I have no one to send to seek him for me. His name is Owain, the son of Urien. And art thou certain that if that knight knew all this, he would come to thy rescue? I am most certain of it, said she. When the slices of meat were cooked, Owain divided them into 2 parts, between himself and the maiden, and then Owain laid himself down to sleep. And never did sentinel keep stricter watch over his lord than the lion that night over Owain. The next day there came 2 pages with a great troop of attendants to take Lludd from her cell and put her to death. Owain asked them what charge they had against her. They told him of the compact that was between them, as the maiden had done the night before. And, said they, Owain has failed her. Therefore we are taking her to be burnt. Truly, said Owain, he is a good knight, and if he knew that the maiden was in such peril, I marvel that he came not to her rescue. But if you will accept me in his stead, I will do battle with you. We will, said the youths. And they attacked Owain, and he was hard beset by them. And with that the lion came to Owain's assistance, and they 2 got the better of the young men. And they said to him, Chieftain, it was not agreed that we should fight save with thyself alone, and it is harder for us to contend with yonder animal than with thee. And Owain put the lion in the place where Lludd had been imprisoned, and blocked up the door with stones, and he went to fight with the young men as before. But Owain had not his usual strength, and the 2 youths pressed hard upon him. And the lion roared incessantly at seeing Owain in trouble, and he burst through the wall until he found a way out, and rushed upon the young men, and instantly slew them. So Lludd was saved from being burnt. Then Owain returned with Lludd to the castle of the Lady of the Fountain, and when he went thence, he took the Countess with him to Arthur's court, and she was his wife as long as she lived. End of section 19. Mabinogion Part 5. How Pwyll Outwitted Gawl. Once upon a time Pwyll was at Narberth, his chief palace, where a feast had been prepared for him, and with him was a great host of men. And after the first meal Pwyll arose to walk, and he went to the top of a mound that was above the palace, and was called Gorsed Arberth. Lord, said one of the court, it is peculiar to the mound that whosoever sits upon it cannot go thence, without either receiving wounds or blows, or else seeing a wonder. I fear not to receive wounds or blows, said Pwyll, but as to the wonder, gladly would I see it. I will therefore go and sit upon the mound. And upon the mound he sat. While he sat there, they saw a lady, on a pure white horse of large size, with a garment of shining gold around her, coming along the highway that led from the mound. My men, said Pwyll, is there any among you who knows yonder lady? There is not, lord, said they. Go one of you and meet her, that we may know who she is. And one of them arose, and as he came upon the road to meet her, she passed by, and he followed as fast as he could, being on foot, and the greater was his speed, the further she was from him. When he saw that it profited him nothing to follow her, he returned to Pwyll and said, Lord, it is idle for any one in the world to follow her on foot. Verily, said Pwyll, go unto the palace, and take the fleetest horse that thou seest, and go after her. So he took a horse and went forward. He came to an open level plain, and put spurs to his horse, and the more he urged his horse, the further she was from him. And he returned to the place where Pwyll was, and said, Lord, it will avail nothing for any one to follow yonder lady. I know of no horse in these realms swifter than this, and it availed me not to pursue her. Of a truth, said Pwyll, there must be some illusion here. Let us go towards the palace. So to the palace they went, and spent the day. And the next day they amused themselves until it was time to go to meat. And when meat was ended, Pwyll said, Where are the hosts that went yesterday to the top of the mound? Behold, lord, we are here, said they. Let us go, said he, to the mound and sit there. And do thou, said he to the page who tended his horse, saddle my horse well, and hasten with him to the road, and bring also my spurs with thee. And the youth did thus. They went and sat upon the mound, and ere they had been there but a short time, they beheld the lady coming by the same road. Young man, said Pwyll, I see the lady coming. Give me my horse. Before he had mounted his horse, she passed him, and he turned after her, and followed her. He let his horse go bounding playfully, and thought that he should soon come up with her, but he came no nearer to her than at first. Then he urged his horse to his utmost speed, yet he found that it availed not. Then said Pwyll, O maiden, for the sake of him whom thou best lovest, stay for me. I will stay gladly, said she, and it were better for thy horse, hadst thou asked it long since. So the maiden stopped, and she threw back that part of her head-dress which covered her face. Then he thought that the beauty of all the maidens and all the ladies that he had ever seen was as nothing compared to her beauty. Lady, he said, wilt thou tell me aught concerning thy purpose? I will tell thee, said she. My chief quest was to see thee. Truly, said Pwyll, this is to me the most pleasing quest on which thou couldst have come. And wilt thou tell me who thou art? I will tell thee, lord, said she. I am Rhiannon, the daughter of Llevelys, and they sought to give me a husband against my will. But no husband would I have, and that because of my love for thee. Neither will I yet have one, unless thou reject me. And hither have I come to hear thy answer. By heaven, said Pwyll, behold, this is my answer. If I might choose among all the ladies and damsels in the world, thee would I choose. Verily, said she, if thou art thus minded, make a pledge to meet me, ere I am given to another. The sooner I may do so, the more pleasing will it be to me, said Pwyll, and wheresoever thou wilt, there will I meet with thee. I will that thou meet me this day 12-month, at the palace of Llevelys. Gladly, said he, will I keep this tryst. So they parted, and he went back to his hosts, and to them of his household. And whatsoever questions they asked him respecting the damsel, he always turned the discourse upon other matters. When a year from that time was gone, he caused 100 knights to equip themselves, and to go with him to the palace of Llevelys. And he came to the palace, and there was great joy concerning him, with much concourse of people, and great rejoicing, and vast preparations for his coming. And the whole court was placed under his orders. And the hall was garnished, and they went to meat, and thus did they sit. Llevelys was on one side of Pwyll, and Rhiannon on the other, and all the rest according to their rank. And they ate and feasted, and talked one with another. After the meat there entered a tall auburn-haired youth, of royal bearing, clothed in a garment of satin, who saluted Pwyll and his companions. The greeting of heaven be unto thee, said Pwyll. Come thou and sit down. Nay, said he, a suitor am I, and I will do my errand. Do so willingly, said Pwyll. Lord, said he, my errand is unto thee, and it is to crave a boon of thee that I come. What boon soever thou mayest ask of me, so far as I am able, thou shalt have. Ah, said Rhiannon, wherefore didst thou give that answer? Has he not given it before the presence of these nobles? Asked the youth. My soul, said Pwyll, what is the boon thou askest? The lady whom best I love is to be thy bride this night. I come to ask her of thee, with the feast and the banquet that are in this place. And Pwyll was silent, because of the promise which he had given. Be silent as long as thou wilt, said Rhiannon. Never did man make worse use of his wits than thou hast done. Lady, said he, I knew not who he was. Behold, this is the man to whom they would have given me against my will, said she, and he is Gawl, the son of Lludd, a man of great power and wealth, and because of the word thou hast spoken, bestow me upon him, lest shame befall thee. Lady, said he, I understand not thy answer, never can I do as thou sayest. Bestow me upon him, said she, and I will cause that I shall never be his." "By what means will that be?" asked Pwyll. She told him the thought that was in her mind, and they talked long together. Then Gawl said, "Lord, it is meet that I have an answer to my request." "As much of that thou hast asked, as it is in my power to give, thou shalt have," replied Pwyll. "My soul," said Rhiannon unto Gawl, "as for the feast and the banquet that are here, I have bestowed them upon the men of Dyved, and the household and the warriors that are with us. These can I not suffer to be given to any. And a year from tonight a banquet shall be prepared for thee in this place, that I may become thy bride." So Gawl went forth to his possessions, and Pwyll went also back to Dyved, and they both spent that year until it was time for the feast at the palace of Llevelys. Then Gawl, the son of Lludd, set out to the feast that was prepared for him, and he came to the palace, and was received there with rejoicing. Pwyll also, the chief of Dyved, came to the orchard with 100 knights, as Rhiannon had commanded him. And Pwyll was clad in coarse and ragged garments, and wore large clumsy old shoes upon his feet. And when he knew that the carousal after the meat had begun, he went towards the hall, and when he came into the hall he saluted Gawl, the son of Lludd, and his company, both men and women. "Heaven prosper thee," said Gawl, "and friendly greeting be unto thee." "Lord," said he, "may heaven reward thee. I have an errand unto thee." "Welcome be thine errand, and if thou ask of me that which is right, thou shalt have it gladly." "It is fitting," answered he. "I crave but from want, and the boon I ask is to have this small bag that thou seest filled with meat." "A request within reason is this," said he, "and gladly thou shalt have it. Bring him food." A great number of attendants rose and began to fill the bag, but for all they put into it, it was no fuller than at first. "My soul," said Gawl, "will thy bag ever be full?" "It will not, I declare to heaven," said he, "for all that may be put into it, unless one possessed of lands, and domains, and treasures, shall arise, and tread down with both his feet the food that is within the bag, and shall say, Enough has been put therein." Then said Rhiannon unto Gawl, the son of Lludd, "Rise up quickly." "I will willingly arise," said he. So he rose up and put his 2 feet into the bag, and Pwyll turned up the sides of the bag, so that Gawl was over his head in it. And he shut it up quickly, and slipped a knot upon the thongs, and blew his horn. And thereupon, behold, his knights came down upon the palace. They seized all the host that had come with Gawl, and cast them into his own prison, and Pwyll threw off his rags, and his old shoes, and his tattered array. And they came in, every one of Pwyll's knights. As they came in, every one of Pwyll's knights struck a blow upon the bag, and asked, "What is here?" "A badger," said they. And in this manner they played, each of them striking the bag, either with his foot or with a staff. And then was the game of badger in the bag first played. "Lord," said the man in the bag, "if thou wouldst but hear me, I merit not to be slain in a bag." Said Llevelys, "Lord, he speaks truth. It were fitting that thou listen to him, for he deserves not this." "Verily," said Pwyll, "I will do thy counsel concerning him." "Behold, this is my counsel then," said Rhiannon. "Thou art now in a position in which it behooves thee to satisfy suitors and minstrels. Let him give unto them in thy stead, and take a pledge from him that he will never seek to revenge that which has been done to him. And this will be punishment enough." "I will do this gladly," said the man in the bag. "And gladly will I accept it," said Pwyll, "since it is the counsel of Llevelys and Rhiannon. Seek thyself sureties." "We will be for him," said Llevelys, "until his men be free to answer for him." And upon this he was let out of the bag, and his liegemen were liberated. "Verily, Lord," said Gawl, "I am greatly hurt, and I have many bruises. With thy leave I will go forth. I will leave nobles in my stead to answer for me, and all that thou shalt require." "Willingly," said Pwyll, "mayst thou do thus." So Gawl went to his own possessions. And the hall was set in order for Pwyll and the men of his host, and for them also of the palace, and they went to the tables and sat down. And as they had sat that time 12-month, so sat they that night. They ate and feasted, and spent the night in mirth and tranquillity. Next morning at break of day, "My lord," said Rhiannon, "arise and begin to give thy gifts unto the minstrels. Refuse no one today that may claim thy bounty." "Thus shall it be gladly," said Pwyll, "both today and every day while the feast shall last." So Pwyll arose, and he caused silence to be proclaimed, and desired all the suitors and minstrels to show and to point out what gifts they desired. And this being done, the feast went on, and he denied no one while it lasted. And when the feast was ended, Pwyll said unto Llevelys, "My lord, with thy permission, I will set out for Dyfed tomorrow." "Certainly," said Llevelys. "May heaven prosper thee. Fix also a time when Rhiannon shall follow thee." "By heaven," said Pwyll, "we will go hence together." "Willest thou this, lord?" said Llevelys. "Yes, lord," answered Pwyll. And the next day they set forward from Dyfed, and journeyed to the palace of Narberth, where a feast was made ready for them. And there came to them great numbers of the chief men and the most noble ladies of the land. And of these there were none to whom Rhiannon did not give some rich gift, either a bracelet, or a ring, or a precious stone. And they ruled the land prosperously that year and the next. End of section 20. The Mabinogion Part 6. How Manaqyddan Caught a Thief. Pwyll and Rhiannon had a son, whom they named Pryderi. And when he was grown up, Pwyll his father died, and Pryderi married Kicva, the daughter of Gawl. Now Manaqyddan returned from the war in Ireland, and he found that his cousin had seized all his possessions, and much grief and heaviness came upon him. "Alas, woe is me!" he exclaimed. "There is none save myself without a home and a resting place." "Lord," said Pryderi, "be not so sorrowful. Thy cousin is king of the island of the mighty, and though he has done thee wrong, thou hast never been a claimant of land or possessions." "Yea," answered he, "but although this man is my cousin, it grieveth me to see any one in the place of my brother, Bendigeid Vran. Neither can I be happy in the same dwelling with him." "Wilt thou follow the counsel of another?" said Pryderi. "I stand in need of counsel," he answered. "And what may that counsel be?" "7 cantrevs belong unto me," said Pryderi, "wherein Rhiannon my mother dwells. I will bestow her upon thee, and the 7 cantrevs with her. And though thou hadst no possession but those cantrevs only, thou couldst not have any fairer than they. Do thou and Rhiannon enjoy them, and if thou desire any possessions, thou wilt not despise these." "I do not, chieftain," said he. "Heaven reward thee for thy friendship. I will go with thee to seek Rhiannon, and look to thy possessions." "Thou wilt do well," he answered, "and I believe that thou didst never hear a lady discourse better than she, and when she was in her prime, none was ever fairer. Even now her aspect is not uncomely." They set forth, and however long the journey, they came at last to Dyfed, and a feast was prepared for them by Rhiannon and Kicva. Then began Manaqyddan and Rhiannon to sit and to talk together, and his mind and his thoughts became warm towards her, and he thought in his heart he had never beheld any lady more fulfilled of grace and beauty than she. "Pryderi," said he, "I will that it be as thou didst say." "What saying was that?" asked Rhiannon. "Lady," said Pryderi, "I did offer thee as a wife to Manaqyddan." "By that will I gladly abide," said Rhiannon. "Right glad am I also," said Manaqyddan. "May heaven reward him who has shown unto me friendship so perfect as this." And before the feast was over, she became his bride. "Tarry ye here the rest of the feast, and I will go into England to tender my homage unto Caswallon, the son of Beli," said Pryderi. "Lord," said Rhiannon, "Caswallon is in Kent. Thou mayst therefore tarry at the feast, and wait until he shall be nearer." "We will wait," he answered. So they finished the feast, and they began to make the circuit of Dyfed, and to hunt, and to take their pleasure. And as they went through the country, they had never seen lands more pleasant to live in, nor better hunting grounds, nor greater plenty of honey and fish. And such was the friendship between these four, that they would not be parted from each other, by night nor by day. In the midst of all this, he went to Caswallon at Oxford, and tendered his homage, and honourable was his reception there, and highly was he praised for offering his homage. After his return, Pryderi and Manaqyddan began a feast at Narberth, for it was the chief palace. When they had ended the first meal, while those who served them ate, they arose and went to the mound of Narberth, with their retinue with them. As they sat there, behold, a peal of thunder, and with the violence of the thunderstorm, lo, there came a fall of mist, so thick that not one of them could see the other. And after the mist it became light all around. When they looked towards the place where they were wont to see the cattle and herds and dwellings, they saw nothing now, neither house, nor beast, nor smoke, nor fire, nor man, nor dwelling, but the buildings of the court empty and uninhabited, without either man or beast within them. "In the name of heaven," said Manaqyddan, "where are they of the court, and all my host beside? Let us go and see." So they came to the castle, and saw no man, and into the hall, and to the sleeping place, and there was none, and in the mead cellar and in the kitchen there was naught but desolation. Then they began to go through the land, and all the possessions that they had, and they visited the houses and dwellings, and found nothing but wild beasts. And when they had consumed their feast, and all their provisions, they fell upon the prey they killed in hunting. One morning Pryderi and Manaqyddan ranged their dogs and went forth to hunt. Some of the dogs ran before them, and came to a bush which was near at hand. But as soon as they were come to the bush, they hastily drew back, and returned to the men, their hair bristling up greatly. "Let us go," said Pryderi, "and see what is in it." As they came near, behold, a wild boar of a pure white colour rose up from the bush. Then the dogs, being set on by the men, rushed towards him, but he left the bush, and fell back a little way from the men, and made a stand against the dogs, until the men had come near. When the men came up, he fell back a second time, and betook him to flight. They pursued the boar until they beheld a vast and lofty castle, all newly built, in a place where they had never before seen either stone or building. And the boar ran swiftly into the castle, the dogs after him. The men began to wonder at finding a castle in a place where they had never before seen any building, and listened for the dogs. But they heard not one of the dogs, nor aught concerning them. "Lord," said Pryderi, "I will go into the castle to get tidings of the dogs." "Truly," he replied, "if thou wouldst follow my counsel, thou wouldst not enter therein. Whosoever has cast a spell over this land has caused this castle to be here." "Of a truth," answered Pryderi, "I cannot thus give up my dogs." And to the castle he went. When he came within the castle, he found neither man nor beast, nor boar, nor dogs, nor house, nor dwelling within it. In the centre of the castle floor he beheld a fountain, with marble work around it, and on the margin of the fountain a golden bowl upon a marble slab, and chains hanging from the air, to which he saw no end. He was greatly pleased with the beauty of the gold, and with the rich workmanship of the bowl. And he went up to the bowl, and laid hold of it. And when he had taken hold of it, his hands stuck to the bowl, and his feet to the slab on which the bowl was placed, and all his joyousness forsook him, so that he could not utter a word. And thus he stood. Manaqyddan waited for him till near the close of the day. Late in the evening, being certain that he should have no tidings of Pryderi or the dogs, he went back to the palace. As he entered, Rhiannon looked at him. "Where," said she, "are thy companion and the dogs?" "Behold," he answered, "the adventure that has befallen me." And he related it all unto her. "An evil companion hast thou been," said Rhiannon, "and a good companion hast thou lost." And with that word she went out, and proceeded towards the castle, according to the direction which he gave her. The gate of the castle she found open. She was nothing daunted, and went in. As she went in, she perceived Pryderi laying hold of the bowl, and she went towards him. "O my lord," said she, "what dost thou here?" She took hold of the bowl with him, and as she did so, her hands also became fast to the bowl, and her feet to the slab, and she was not able to utter a word. And with that, as it became night, lo, there came thunder upon them, and a fall of mist, and thereupon the castle vanished, and they with it. When Kicva saw that there was no one in the palace but herself and Manaqyddan, she sorrowed so that she cared not whether she lived or died. And Manaqyddan saw this. "Thou art in the wrong," said he. "If through fear of me thou grievest thus, I call heaven to witness that thou hast never seen friendship more pure than that which I will bear thee. But it is not fitting for us to stay here. We have lost our dogs, and cannot get food. Let us go into England. It is easiest for us to find support there." "Gladly, lord," said she, "we will do so." And they set forth together to England. "Lord," said she, "what craft wilt thou follow?" "Take up one that is seemly." "None other will I take," answered he, "but that of making shoes." "Lord," said she, "such a craft becomes not a man so nobly born as thou." "By that, however, will I abide," said he. "I know nothing thereof," said Kicva. "But I know," answered Manaqyddan, "and I will teach thee to stitch. We will not attempt to dress the leather, but we will buy it ready dressed, and will make the shoes from it." So they went into England, and went as far as Hereford, and they betook themselves to making shoes. He began by buying the best cordwain that could be had in the town, and associated himself with the best goldsmith in the town, and caused him to make clasps for the shoes, and to gild the clasps, and he marked how it was done until he learned the method. When they could be had from him, not a shoe nor hose was bought of any of the cordwainers in the town. When the cordwainers perceived that their gains were failing, they came together and took counsel, and agreed that they would slay them. And he had warning thereof, and it was told him how the cordwainers had agreed together to slay him. "Lord," said Kicva, "wherefore should this be borne from these boors?" "Nay," said he, "we will go back to David." So towards David they set forth. Now Manaqyddan, when he set out to return to David, took with him a burden of wheat, and he proceeded towards Narberth, and there he dwelt. Never was he better pleased than when he saw Narberth again, and the lands where he had been wont to hunt with Pryderi and with Rhiannon. And he accustomed himself to fish, and to hunt for deer in their covert. He began to prepare some ground, and he sowed a croft, and a second, and a third. And no wheat in the world ever sprung up better. The 3 crofts prospered with perfect growth, and no man ever saw fairer wheat. Thus passed the seasons of the year until the harvest came. And he went to look at one of his crofts, and behold, it was ripe. "I will reap this tomorrow," said he. On the morrow, when he came there, he found nothing but the bare straw. Every one of the ears of the wheat was cut off from the stalk, and all the ears carried entirely away, and at this he marveled greatly. Then he went to look at another croft, and behold, that also was ripe. "Verily," said he, "this will I reap tomorrow." And on the morrow he came with the intent to reap it, but when he came there, he found nothing but the bare straw. "O gracious heaven!" he exclaimed, "I know that whosoever has begun my ruin is completing it, and has also destroyed the country with me." Then he went to look at the third croft, and when he came there, finer wheat had there never been seen, and this also was ripe. "Evil betide me," said he, "if I watch not here tonight. Whoever carried off the other corn will come in like manner to take this, and I will know who it is." And he told Kicva all that had befallen. "Verily," said she, "what thinkest thou to do?" "I will watch the croft tonight," said he. And he went to watch the croft. At midnight he heard something stirring among the wheat, and he looked, and behold, the mightiest host of mice in the world, which could neither be numbered nor measured. He knew not what it was until the mice had made their way into the croft, and each of them, climbing up the straw, and bending it down with its weight, had cut off one of the ears of wheat, and had carried it away, leaving there the stalk, and he saw not a single straw there that had not a mouse to it. And they all took their way, carrying the ears with them. In wrath and anger did he rush upon the mice, but he could no more come up with them than if they had been gnats or birds of the air, except one only, which, though it was but sluggish, went so fast that a man on foot could scarce overtake it. After this one he went, and he caught it, and put it in his glove, and tied up the opening of the glove with a string, and kept it with him, and returned to the palace. Then he came to the hall where Kicva was, and he lighted a fire, and hung the glove by the string upon a peg. "What hast thou there, lord?" said Kicva. "A thief," said he, "that I found robbing me." "What kind of a thief may it be, lord, that thou couldst put into thy glove?" said she. Then he told her how the mice came to the last of the fields in his sight. "And one of them was less nimble than the rest, and is now in my glove. Tomorrow I will hang it." "My lord," said she, "this is marvellous, but yet it would be unseemly for a man of dignity like thee to be hanging such a reptile as this." "Woe betide me," said he, "if I would not hang them all, could I catch them, and such as I have I will hang." "Verily, lord," said she, "there is no reason that I should succour this reptile, except to prevent discredit unto thee. Do therefore, lord, as thou wilt." Then he went to the mound of Narberth, taking the mouse with him. He set up 2 forks on the highest part of the mound, and while he was doing this he saw a scholar coming towards him, in old and tattered garments. It was 7 years since he had seen in that place either man or beast, except those 4 persons who had remained together, until 2 of them were lost. "My lord," said the scholar, "good day to thee." "Heaven prosper thee, and my greeting be unto thee." "And whence dost thou come, scholar?" asked he. "I come, lord, from singing in England." "And wherefore dost thou inquire?" "Because for the last 7 years," answered he, "I have seen no man here save 4 secluded persons, and thyself this moment." "Truly, lord," said he, "I go through this land unto mine own. And what work art thou upon, lord?" "I am hanging a thief that I caught robbing me," said he. "What manner of thief is that?" asked the scholar. "I see a creature in thy hand like unto a mouse, and ill does it become a man of rank equal to thine to touch a reptile such as this. Let it go forth free." "I will not let it go free, by heaven," said he. "I caught it robbing me, and the doom of a thief will I inflict upon it, and I will hang it." "Lord," said he, "rather than see a man of rank equal to thine at such a work as this, I would give thee £1, which I have received as alms, to let the reptile go forth free." "I will not let it go free," said he, "neither will I sell it." "As thou wilt, lord," he answered, "I care not." And the scholar went his way. As he was placing the crossbeam upon the 2 forks, behold, a priest came towards him, upon a horse covered with trappings. "Good day to thee, lord," said he. "Heaven prosper thee," said Manaqyddan, "thy blessing." "The blessings of heaven be upon thee. And what, lord, art thou doing?" "I am hanging a thief that I caught robbing me." "What manner of thief, lord?" asked he. "A creature," he answered, "in the form of a mouse. It has been robbing me, and I am inflicting upon it the doom of a thief." "Lord," said he, "rather than see thee touch this reptile, I would purchase its freedom. By my confession to heaven, neither will I sell it nor set it free. It is true, lord, that it is worth nothing to buy, but rather than see thee defile thyself by touching such a reptile as this, I will give thee £3 to let it go." "I will not, by heaven," said he, "take any price for it. As it ought, so shall it be hanged. And the priest went his way. Then he noosed the string around the mouse's neck, and as he was about to draw it up, behold, he saw a bishop's retinue, with his sumpter horses and his attendants. The bishop himself came towards him, and he stayed his work. "Lord Bishop," said he, "thy blessing." "Heaven's blessings be unto thee," said he. "What work art thou upon?" "Hanging a thief that I caught robbing me," said he. "Is not that a mouse that I see in thy hand?" "Yes," answered he, "and she has robbed me." "Aye," said he, "since I have come at the doom of this reptile, I will ransom it of thee. I will give thee 7 pounds for it, and that rather than see a man of rank equal to thine destroying so vile a reptile as this. Let it loose, and thou shalt have the money. I declare to heaven that I will not let it loose. If thou wilt not loose it for this, I will give thee 24 pounds of ready money to set it free." "I will not set it free, by heaven, for as much again," said he. "If thou wilt not set it free for this, I will give thee all the horses that thou seest in this plain, and the 7 loads of baggage, and the 7 horses that they are upon." "By heaven, I will not," he replied. "Since for this thou wilt not set it free, do so at what price soever thou wilt." "I will that Rhiannon and Pryderi be free," said he. "That thou shalt have," he answered. "Not yet will I loose the mouse, by heaven." "What then wouldst thou?" "That the charms and the illusion be removed from the 7 cantrevs of David." "This thou shalt have also. Set therefore the mouse free." "I will not set it free, by heaven," said he, "till I know who the mouse may be." "She is my wife." "Wherefore came she to me?" "To despoil thee," he answered. "I am Lludd, the son of Lludd, and I cast a charm over the 7 cantrevs of David. And it was to avenge Gawl, the son of Lludd, from the friendship I had towards him, that I cast the charm. And upon Pryderi did I avenge Gawl, the son of Lludd, for the game of badger in the bag, that Pwyll, the son of Owain, played upon him. And when it was known that thou wouldst come to dwell in the land, my household came and besought me to transform them into mice, that they might destroy thy corn. They went the first and the 2nd night, and destroyed thy 2 crofts. The 3rd night my wife came unto me, and the ladies of the court, and besought me to transform them. And I transformed them. Now my wife was not in her usual health, for had she been in her usual health, thou wouldst not have been able to overtake her. But since this has taken place, and she has been caught, I will restore to thee Pryderi and Rhiannon, and I will take the charm and illusion from off David. Set her therefore free." "I will not set her free yet." "What wilt thou more?" he asked. "I will that there be no more charm upon the 7 cantrevs of David, and that none shall be put upon it henceforth. Moreover, that vengeance be never taken for this, either upon Pryderi or Rhiannon, or upon me. All this shalt thou have. And truly thou hast done wise in asking this. Upon thy head would have lit all this trouble." "Yea," said he, "for fear thereof was it that I required this. Set now my wife at liberty." "I will not," said he, "until I see Pryderi and Rhiannon with me free." "Behold, here they come," he answered. And thereupon he beheld Pryderi and Rhiannon. He rose up to meet them, and greeted them, and sat down beside them. "Ah, chieftain, set now my wife at liberty," said the bishop. "Hast thou not received all thou didst ask?" "I will release her gladly," said he. And thereupon he set her free. Then he struck her with a magic wand, and she was changed back into a young woman, the fairest ever seen. "Look round upon thy land," said he, "and thou wilt see it all tilled and peopled as it was in its best estate." And he rose up and looked forth. And when he looked, he saw all the lands tilled, and full of herds and dwellings. End of section 21. Patton. The Mabinogion Part 7. The story of Lludd and Llevelys. Beli the Great, the son of Mabinogion, had 3 sons, Lludd and Caswallon and Ninja. And according to the story he had a 4th son called Llevelys. After the death of Beli, the kingdom of the island of Britain fell into the hands of Lludd, his eldest son, and Lludd ruled prosperously, and rebuilt the city of London, and encompassed it about with numberless towers. And after that he bade the citizens build houses therein, such as no houses in the kingdom could equal. And moreover he was a mighty warrior, and generous and liberal in giving meat and drink to all that sought them. And though he had many castles and cities, this one loved he more than any. And he dwelt therein most part of the year, and therefore it was called Caer Lludd, and at last Caer London. And after the stranger race came there, it was called London, or Lwendrys. Lludd loved Llevelys best of all his brothers, because he was a wise and a discreet man. Having heard that the king of France had died, leaving no heir except a daughter, and that he had left all his possessions in her hands, he came to Lludd his brother, to beseech his counsel and aid. And that not so much for his own welfare, as to seek to add to the glory and honor and dignity of his kindred, if he might go to France to woo the maiden for his wife. And forthwith his brother conferred with him, and this counsel was pleasing unto him. So he prepared his ships, and filled them with armed knights, and set forth towards France. And as soon as they had landed, they sent messengers to show the nobles of France the cause of the embassy. And by the joint counsel of the nobles of France and of the princes, the maiden was given to Llevelys, and the crown of the kingdom with her. And thenceforth he ruled the land discreetly and wisely and happily, as long as his life lasted. After a space of time had passed, 3 plagues fell upon the island of Britain, such as none in the islands had ever seen the like. The first was a certain race that came, and was called the Coranians, and so great was their knowledge that there was no discourse upon the face of the island, however low it might be spoken, but what, if the wind met it, it was known to them. And through this they could not be injured. The second plague was a shriek, which came on every May Eve, over every hearth in the island of Britain. And this went through people's hearts, and so scared them, that men lost their hue and their strength, and the women their children, and the young men and the maidens lost their senses, and all the animals and the waters were left barren. The third plague was, that however much of provisions and food might be prepared in the king's courts, were there even so much as a year's provisions of meats and drinks, none of it could ever be found, except what was consumed in the first night. And 2 of these plagues, no one ever knew their cause. Therefore was there better hope of being freed from the first, than from the second and the third. And thereupon King Lludd felt great sorrow and care, because that he knew not how he might be freed from these plagues. And he called to him all the nobles of his kingdom, and asked counsel of them what they should do against these afflictions. And by the common counsel of the nobles, Lludd the son of Beli went to Llevelys his brother, king of France, for he was a man of great counsel and wisdom, to seek his advice. And they made ready a fleet, and that in secret and in silence, lest that race should know the cause of their errand, or any besides the king and his counsellors. And when they were made ready, they went into their ships, Lludd and those whom he chose with him. And they began to cleave the seas towards France. And when these tidings came to Llevelys, seeing that he knew not the cause of his brother's ships, he came on the other side to meet him, and with him was a fleet vast of size. And when Lludd saw this, he left all the ships out upon the sea except one only, and in that one he came to meet his brother. And he likewise with a single ship came to meet him. And when they were come together, each put his arms about the other's neck, and they welcomed each other with brotherly love. After that Lludd had shown his brother the cause of his errand, Llevelys said that he himself knew the cause of the coming to those lands. And they took counsel together to discourse on the matter otherwise than thus, in order that the wind might not catch their words, nor the Coranians know what they might say. Then Llevelys caused a long horn to be made of brass, and through this horn they discoursed. But whatsoever words they spoke through this horn, one to the other. Neither of them could hear any other but harsh and hostile words. And when Llevelys saw this, and that there was a demon thwarting them, and disturbing through this horn, he caused wine to be put therein to wash it. And through the virtue of the wine, the demon was driven out of the horn. And when their discourse was unobstructed, Llevelys told his brother that he should give him some insects, whereof he should keep some to breed, lest by chance the like affliction might come a second time. And other of these insects he should take and bruise in water. And he assured him that he would have power to destroy the race of Coranians. That is to say, that when he came home to his kingdom, he should call together all the peoples of both his own race and of the race of the Coranians for a conference, as though with the intent of making peace between them, and that when they were all together, he should take this charmed water and cast it over all alike. And he assured him that the water would poison the race of the Coranians, but that it would not slay or harm those of his own race. And the second plague, said he, that is in thy dominion, behold, it is a dragon. And another dragon of foreign race is fighting with it, and striving to overcome it. And therefore does your dragon make a fearful outcry. And on this wise mayst thou come to know this. After thou hast returned home, cause the island to be measured in its length and breadth. And in the place where thou dost find the exact central point, there cause a pit to be dug, and cause a cauldron full of the best mead that can be made, to be put in the pit, with a covering of satin over the face of the cauldron. And then in thine own person do thou remain there watching, and thou wilt see the dragons fighting, in the form of terrific animals. And at length they will take the form of dragons in the air. And last of all, after wearying themselves with fierce and furious fighting, they will fall in the form of 2 pigs upon the covering, and they will sink in, and the covering with them, and they will draw it down to the very bottom of the cauldron. And they will drink up the whole of the mead, and after that they will sleep. Thereupon do thou immediately fold the covering round them, and bury them in a kist vein, in the strongest place thou hast in thy dominions, and hide them in the earth. And as long as they shall bide in that strong place, no plague shall come to the island of Britain from elsewhere. The cause of the third plague, said he, is a mighty man of magic, who takes thy meat and thy drink and thy stores. And he through illusions and charms causes every one to sleep. Therefore it is needful for thee, in thy own person, to watch thy food and thy provisions. And lest he should overcome thee with sleep, be there a cauldron of cold water by thy side. And when thou art oppressed with sleep, plunge into the cauldron. Then Lludd returned back into his land, and immediately he summoned to him the whole of his own race and of the Coranians. And as Llevelys had taught him, he bruised the insects in water, the which he cast over them all together, and forthwith it destroyed the whole tribe of the Coranians, without hurt to any of the Britons. And some time after this, Lludd caused the island to be measured in its length and breadth. And in Oxford he found the central point, and in that place he caused the earth to be dug, and in that pit a cauldron to be set, full of the best mead that could be made, and a covering of satin over the face of it. And he himself watched that night. And while he was there he beheld the dragons fighting. And when they were weary they fell, and came down upon the top of the satin, and drew it with them to the bottom of the cauldron. And when they had drunk the mead, they slept. And in their sleep Lludd folded the covering around them, and in the securest place he had in Snowdon, he held them in a kist vein. Now after that this spot was called Dinas Emrys, but before that Dinas Faraon. And thus the fierce outcry ceased in his dominions. And when this was ended, King Lludd caused an exceeding great banquet to be prepared. And when it was ready, he placed a vessel of cold water by his side, and he in his own proper person watched it. And as he abode thus clad with arms, about the 3rd watch of the night, lo, he heard many surpassing fascinations, and various songs. and drowsiness urged him to sleep. Upon this, lest he should be hindered from his purpose, and be overcome by sleep, he went often into the water. And at last, behold, a man of vast size, clad in strong heavy armor, came in, bearing a hamper. And as he was wont, he put all the food and provisions of meat and drink into the hamper, and proceeded to go forth with it. And nothing was ever more wonderful to Lludd than that the hamper should hold so much. And thereupon King Lludd went after him, and spoke unto him thus, Stop, stop, said he. Though thou hast done many insults, and much spoil erewhile, thou shalt not do so any more, unless thy skill in arms and thy prowess be greater than mine. And he instantly put down the hamper on the floor, and awaited him. And a fierce encounter was between them, so that the glittering fire flew out from their arms. And at last Lludd grappled with him, and fate bestowed the victory on Lludd, and he threw the plague to the earth. And after he had overcome him by strength and might, he besought his mercy. How can I grant thee mercy, said the king, after all the many insults and wrongs thou hast done me? All the losses that ever I have caused thee, said he, I will make the atonement for, equal to what I have taken, and I will never do the like from this time forth, but thy faithful vassal will I be. And the king accepted this from him. And thus Lludd freed the island of Britain from the 3 plagues. And from thenceforth until the end of his life, in prosperous peace did Lludd the son of Beli rule the island of Britain. And this tale is called the story of Lludd and Llevelys. And thus it ends. End of section 22.